Hey guys, it's Marco again. It's almost been a month since the raid and the Mythic Plus is out, and here I am reviewing the state of all mage specs for the Mythic Plus and the raid. So let's start with the raiding scene. We already saw several guilds down Castle Nathria on Mythic. Most of the raid teams only had one fire mage during the progress, just for arcane intellect buff and nice burst damage. Castle Nathria is a really good fight for fire mages, due to a lot of movement in the execute phase, which suits them quite well, which made them a bit more popular pick for the last boss. Method used 2 fire mages and pieces used 3 on the kill. For Stone Legion generals, pieces used 2 fire mages, other guilds only used 1. For Sludge Fist, pieces actually used 3 fire mages, with method using 2. For all other bosses, these best 5 guilds only used 1 fire mage. Basically, only pieces were a guild who were rocking more fire mages. This means that the regular guilds may even want to run 2 to 3 fire mages, which puts us in a good spot there. We aren't bad, but we aren't as oppressive as we were in BFA. So if you're a good fire mage, you'll definitely find a spot in the raiding scene. I'd even say that we're in top tier of raid DPSers. As for other 2 mage specs, players who only play Frost or Arcane aren't going to have fun in this tier, since they're nowhere to be seen in top 100 guilds or anywhere, to be honest. There's a big chance that you won't be wanted if you play those 2 specs. Now let's check the Warcraft logs for Mythic Raid. Just a short disclaimer, these statistics only apply to bosses which have 50 public kills. So this won't include the Council of Blood or any boss after them. I will only look at 99 percentile logs, since a lot of specs don't have a lot of parses. As you can see, fire mages are in high mid tier to top tier, with 5 classes being better than them. But this is still a very good spot, also knowing that we're doing good on last few bosses. As you can see, arcane mages are quite a low tier DPS, and frost mages are even a big step worse than them, which isn't something you want to see. We also have to bear in mind that fire mages actually have 21k parses, second spec of all parses count. So we are definitely a wanted spec for Mythic Raid progression, while Arcane only has 450 parses and Frost 950 parses, which is such a low number compared to fire mages. Arcane in Frost parses would be better if they had the same amount of parses and the same gear as these fire mages. So to conclude, if you're a fire mage, you're a hot stuff for the Mythic Raid progression. You'll be wanted for your execute and mobility, while Arcane mages and Frost mages aren't wanted at all in the Mythic raiding scene. Now let's head on to Heroic Raid. Here we have a full raid representation. Logs include all of the bosses, and there's a huge amount of logs out there. So this should be a good enough source to determine viability of a spec. I'm looking at 95 percentile logs, which is usually the metric I use to determine the class strength. Fire mages here are better than in Mythic progression. They're a top tier class with Unholy DKs slightly edging them. Affliction Warlocks and Balance Druids are definitely the top of the top tier for this raid. Here almost every raid is having a few fire mages, and raiding arms will be widely open for fire mages. And how do our other 2 specs fare? Sadly, they're following the Mythic trend. Arcane mages are a bit better than in Mythic, they're in low mid tier. Also, just to mention, I divided this chart in my own tiers. First 6 specs are top tier, with 2 being top of the top tier. So from Windwalker Monks to Outlaw Rogues, we have top mid tier specs. Retribution to Havoc is mid tier. From Demonology to Destruction Warlocks is low mid tier specs. Other specs are just low tier specs. So if you're Arcane, you will still be accepted in Heroic Raids, and average Arcane Mage is able to dish out a decent amount of DPS, but still you will be questioned on why do you play Arcane Mages when you can be fire and do much more, which is quite an annoying factor to deal with. Lastly, we have Frost Mages on the absolute bottom, which is never a nice sight, especially after it's been speculated that they're going to be a top tier mage spec for this raiding scene. I really have nothing good to say about frost mages, and I haven't seen one in quite a while. All winter mages that I knew went for Night Fae and they just stopped playing frost overall. They're faring a bit better on max percentile logs, but they're still far in the bottom tier. You will still be accepted to heroic raids, but the voices are going to be even larger than with being an arcane mage. So to conclude the overall story of mages in this raid tier, we only have one spec, and that's fire mages. And we're doing reasonably well. We aren't the best, but will always be seen on the DPS meter. Sadly, fire mages scaled way too fast in this expansion, making them the best mage choice for last 2 years, excluding the pre-patch. If you're arcane or frost, you will constantly be questioned and demoralized by all the whispers why you know fire. And the fact that mediocre fire mage is going to match your performance even if you're a great arcane mage, and mediocre fire mage is going to outperform a great frost mage. That's it for the raid situation, and now for Mythic Plus situation. Fire mages are in a very good spot in high Mythic Plus keys, highly sought after range class, together with hunters. We bring Time Warp into the party and an intellect buff. Fire mages work extremely well for big packs and coordinated Mythic Plus groups. All these factors explain why we have a nice number of fire mages in big Mythic Plus scores. But if you're pugging, like the most of the people, you will be a lot more wanted just for being a fire mage. The drawback of this is that arcane and frost mages aren't needed at all. As soon as people see me in my arcane spec, which I rock for open world content, I instantly get asked, are you arcane? Or can you play fire? I sometimes go into explaining that arcane is good as well, but that I can play both. They always want me to go fire. Personally, I think that this is a pure discrimination towards frost and arcane mages, since they are actually extremely good in Mythic Plus. I'd say that they are better than fire mages on fortified weeks with uncoordinated groups. But fire mage is always better on tyrannical weeks and in coordinated groups. And almost all pug groups are uncoordinated. I'd have to see a tank who plays around my combustion, even though I say when my combustion is ready. Pugging Mythic Plus always leaves a bad taste for me, especially due to discrimination of arcane and frost mages. So if you aren't a big Mythic Plus pusher, I recommend playing with group of friends instead of going through torment of pugging. To conclude the video and overall state, I think that fire mages are in okay state and they should be left as they are. Arcane mages deserve to get buffed for solo targets, and in my opinion, in perfect world, they would offer more damage than fire mages on solo target fights without movement. With fire out DPSing them when movement is needed. Also, I think that arcane is more skilled to play than fire, and that should always offer a bit more damage in my opinion. Lastly, frost mages just need to be reverted to their beta versions before the overall nerfs to the spec. Frost is always the easy spec for mages, and in my humble opinion, they should always do a bit less damage than other two specs. But they're extremely reliable in doing DPS and mechanics. So, what is your opinion about the state of the mages, and what do you think about overall state of balance in this new expansion? Let me know down in the comments. And if you survived to this part of the video, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribed, because only 7% of people who watch me are actually subscribed. So please press that subscribe button and help me in the long run, it's free. And as always, until next time, take care.